my name is Oriana. I'm from the environment team in Tree Nation, and I'm here with Khalifa, the planting director of our project Plant to Stop Poverty in Tanzania. So far, we have planted over 1 million trees in Tanzania with this project, and we have been working together since 2022. So, Khalifa, I give the floor to you so you can explain a little bit about your project. What is the important aspects that you consider? What is your history? And also, the most important part is what inspired you to follow in this path of reforestation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Oriana. I'm so excited. My name is Khalifa Mganga, an executive director at Forest Focus. I'm also a head of planting, just undertaking and supervising all the planting works around here. So Forest Focus is an NGO, a non-governmental organization that started 5 years ago, and we were driven by the existing extreme poverty in most of the areas, especially our home villages where we are living, and the physical changes we have been experiencing in these areas. For example, myself, I come from a village which is just beside the Pangani River, which provides water for a big population of people. It crosses almost 5 regions with more than, 15, 20 districts, people depending upon water that is flowing through this river. I grew up along the river, playing, fetching water, observing so much things that we currently can't see them anymore. I left the place, is Korogwe, for studies in other regions for at least 15 years. When I came back, that was in the early years of 2000, things were definitely different. We could not see most of the stuff. For example, when I was in primary school, we used to conduct all these big gatherings, a graduation ceremony or a school meeting, and a very large tree, which is Milicia excessa. Of course, it's one of the trees we are trying to restore with the donations we are getting from the partners on the platform, the Tree Nation platform. So this tree never existed when I went back, and it's one of the endangered tree species here in Tanzania. To me, that was really bad. We used to play also with smaller birds and famously known as golden finches. These were very famous in these areas, and they were no more, they were not there. We could not find them. In the river was populated by a number of creatures like crocodiles, but most of the streams are nowadays dried up. People can't see this. They cannot see some primates like the barbet monkeys, which used to dwell from trees to trees. Of course, even the trees themselves are not existing along the riverbanks. So these huge changes, drove me with a group of 4 or 5 colleagues, and we decided that we need to change. If not restoring everything that is lost, but at least we maintain what is available by helping people to get some alternatives to earn or make living, rather than leaving people to proceed with the currently unsustainable agricultural activities, which has made the situation the way it looks right now. And what actually happened is, like, we had this serious impact from changes in climate, the climate change, global warming and stuff. So people used to produce most of their food in the lands which are on the mountain slopes. But again, due to scarcity in rainfall, they've been squeezing into the water bodies just along the river and around these existing fewer dams, trying to look for moisture land that they can use to produce their food. So they are not guided. There is nothing that guides them how better to practice agriculture in these sensitive areas. So what came later, most of the riverbanks became cleared and they were empty. This produced or led to another challenge, which is riverbank erosion. Most of the riverbank in this Pangani River is heavily eroded once it rains, because nothing to restrict runoff that leads to the degraded riverbank and the whole ecosystem. So people are producing like vegetables and also cereals very closer to the rivers, leading to increased bank erosion, but also pollution in the same water. For example, this river is also the main source of production of the hydroelectric power, because we normally use that as our primary source of power in this area here. But the turbines, especially from the company that is producing electricity, the turbines are highly affected with increased sound and sometimes mud, or they can't run properly due to such sort of pollutions. But again, as I said, ecologically, we don't have trees nowadays like the ficus, ficus thorningi, ficus sycamores. All these trees, we also mentioned them on the platform for people to keep on supporting, because these are the trees that are lost and we are trying to restore them by replanting them in these areas. So while educating the people not to cultivate closer to the water sources, we first of all need to educate them, tell them what is an impact they are trying to make with agricultural practices they are doing in these areas. So once they understand, we agree that there is a certain part of the river that has to be untouchable. And so it's where most of the native trees are planted, including the Ficus sycamores, Ficus thorningi, Albizia shimperana, and also acacia. These are some of the native trees we are trying to plant to protect the river just mentioned. So once they agree, we normally incorporate them in a special program. We call this forest gardening program. Actually, it's an agroforestry kind of program where farmers are gathered into groups and they are trained the basics and the best they can practice agriculture with the existing less moisture in the land that they have just abandoned. And this form of agriculture is where they diversify their farms by including the crops they need for food or trading, and also agroforestry trees. For example, we have the Mangifera indica, which is commonly called the mango. Yes, and citrus fruits like Citrus sinensis, which is orange. We also have like Pessia americana, which is avocado. These are highly selling kind of, fruits. So once provided to the people, and most of these trees are budded and grafted, we practice what we call artificial propagation by doing what we call budding or grafting, depending on the tree species. So once we practice this, the production time gets reduced to 24 to 36 months before a tree can start producing their first flowers and then bear fruits, which these people use for food and also they use for trade, because these are the highly selling fruits around here in the region. I can say in East Africa, because most of the people don't know, just orange in Tanzania, I mean in East Africa, is sourced in Tanzania, and it's from the region that we are operating. Once it's season, you'll see a couple of trucks from Kenya with Kenyan numbers, Kenya's registrations, just getting through the villages, collecting the best orange that is exported to Nairobi and sometimes London. So we think that is also an opportunity for the farmers we're working with to get a clean income instead of going to the rivers, instead of going to the forest, clearing the forest to get some wood they can sell or use to make charcoal and maybe timber that they trade to get money. Then they can rely on these fruits we are actually giving them. So apart from these trees, we also offer them some quick producing fruit plants like the Passiflora edulis. This is passion fruits. It takes 6 months for the farmer to get the first fruits. And it's one of the expensive fruits as well, because it's around $2 to $3 per kilogram in the market. So you can imagine for a farmer having at least 100 maybe plants in one season, they make a good money than what they would make by trading wood or selling charcoal that is made out of the chopped trees from these areas where we are trying to protect. For the project to have a wider impact to the community we are working with, 2 to 5% of the fund we receive from the partners who are donating, is streamed to these vulnerable groups, especially students from these extreme poor families who could not afford even, a pair of shoes or a pair of school uniform or stationaries sometimes, even some smaller fees they need to pay to cover their daily meals at the store. So some find themselves quitting from this important life career just because they don't have funds. So we normally use that dedicated amount to support these children by making sure that we try to fund all the basics they need for them to achieve their dream. We provide some bicycles and all the stuffs I've just mentioned. Yeah, the aim is to help the community to pull out of extreme poverty, just like what the project says, just using the trees. So we started the partnership officially with Tree Nation in 2021. Of course, we had a process of due diligence and, before we were incorporated. And thank you. That was really nice because every step was really transparent to a point where the project was enrolled in the platform. And yeah, we are very proud of that because you are one of the stronger funders, the larger funders that we are actually, depending upon. So we started in 2021 officially. So we started by a small goal, but we are currently at 1.6 million trees planted up to this moment. Of course, the goal is to raise and plant at least 12 million trees by 2030. And we are still struggling to gather resources and, expertise to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So that's how we started. And we are also happy because we've been visited by Tree Nation several times. And most of the time we are visited, everything, is positive, and we've been receiving a number of constructive comments from you guys, most of which we are currently working to, to improve the process and the whole thing, the whole project that we are actually doing. So just to ramp up, 25% of the trees we are planting, these fall under the category of agroforestry, the forest gardening program, while 75% falls in the native part of the species we are raising. And these are specifically to restore the river and also destroyed natural foresty parts we are actually, left with around here.
Okay, well, that's amazing. I think everything you just said is like a very comprehensive approach to what a tree can mean. It's not only to recover the river, it's recovering the soil, it's recovering the productivity of the land, and also benefiting the local communities that need it so much to actually engage in economic activity and sell the fruit or the productivity of the trees. So I think this is really one of the like most highlighted projects in our platform because it's essentially planting to stop poverty. So you have the two benefits, environmental and social economics. This is really important that you can show to our audience the importance of just planting a simple tree can actually have a very big impact in the environment and in the people. So far, we have 12 planting sites, and I think maybe in the future we'll have more. And as you say, by the end of 2024, we planted over 1.3 million, and we're going for more. So that is good, and that shows and represents like the trust that we have in you and the results that we have seen on the field is really promising, and we're really excited to see how this project will look like in 10 years. So it's amazing. It's pretty amazing. So I just have a few questions. Could you say like what is the biggest challenge that you faced last year and how did you manage to overcome it?
There are a couple of challenges we've been facing while implementing the project. One of these are the changing weather conditions. To maintain the survival rate to the desired, points, let's say 85%, you need a good amount of moisture sometimes. So with the changing rain trends, we've been having less moisture and sometimes less than what we expect once it comes to survival rate. And yeah, what we did is like trying to seek for more native species which are adaptive to this environment. So we normally reselect species based on the way they might act resilient to the current or to the available moisture and other, changing weather conditions. The other challenge in Tanzania, 75% of the population lives in the countryside and they just depend on subsistence agriculture, producing their own food, producing everything they need for families to eat or to trade. So having the project announced in most of the villages and most of the districts, it's like right now we are having uh, massive requests from these people requiring trees more than what we can provide to them. So it's sometimes a challenge, to prioritize who to offer, who not to offer. I call this a challenge because everyone needs a tree, everyone needs to have fruits, everyone needs to be supported by the project, you see. So these are the two challenges we have been, facing. Changing in weather trends, especially the climate change effect, but also the overwhelming number of orders, people grouping themselves, coming to the offices with inquiring letters, asking for, trees, sometimes with limited number of trees, then that is like we have nothing to do rather than waiting and seeing what will happen in the future.
And for this year, do you have any big goals or any big plans? Or it can be small plans, but what are your plans for this
Exactly.
year?
Exactly. We have two new sites which are Rwengera and Insomera. These are very strategical actually because Rwengera planting sites is one of the larger tributaries which are contributing to Pangani River. Most of the water is flowing into the Pangani River, and we came to realize that this part of the river, of the Pangani River basin, is also facing a challenge with people who are extracting sand from the soil and from the river for construction purposes, not constructing their houses. It's selling the sand into people from the cities and towns who are going to construct houses. So it's more or less commercial. So with that challenge realized, it's the same way, the same challenge that is destructive to the riverbank. So we decided that we need to speak and educate or train these people who are living along this river tributary and maybe incorporate the villages which are living along, which are existing along this river tributary, and see if we can also support them. A good thing we have had that support from Tree Nation, and things have started, and it's one of the places we are recently planting. The other part, the other new site, planting sites is in Somera. This is a new village which has like less than 2 years. Most of the people who are living here migrated from the famous Ngorongoro, and the migration was achieved, I think, last 2 years. So we have some people living in these areas, and for the place being new, it's definitely they need trees and plants to support their daily life. What is actually new, apart from having these new two planting sites, it's about also the traditions of these people who migrated from Gorongoro to this new village. Most of these are Maasai who are livestock keepers. They are pastoralists. But within them, we have these smaller tribes like Datoga. Datoga are we call epicaturists. People who are keeping bees. They normally keep bees, so they produce bees for their food and trade. I think alongside the field updates, photos that we will send, we will also try to include some of the photos from this tribe. It's very interesting. They use their traditional ways to keep bees. But fortunately or unfortunately, we need to have certain species of trees, blooming trees, to support the bees ecosystem because there are some important items the bees need for them to make honey, and most of these are provided by the trees, the blooming trees. So we are also planting these blooming trees around this community for them to provide or to produce enough honey that they use for their daily food and also, to get income rather than just depending upon the cow they keep to get milk and maybe meat to eat. So this is something new. And maybe to mention, we have also increased the number of the students we are supporting this year. We are having like 2 students who are in university right now, and we are having like 3 of them who are in high school, and we have 100 of them who are in primary and secondary school. And we are still striving to at least squeeze the number to get most of the children included. Of course, I think we will also consult John and see if we can include some KPIs just to see what we have been able to achieve since we started supporting these children. Because what I see in the past, we did not have any system that you guys could at least trace what are the academical changes or improvements achieved since we started supporting these people, or what are the economical changes these people have been experiencing from this period of time to the other period of time. As I said before in the introduction, that we are supporting them with trees, but with these larger trees, they need to wait at least for 24 to 20 to 36 months before they start producing. For hungry people, like the people we have in these communities, we need some immediate actions for them to get quick produce, which they can use for several purposes. So it's when the Pasiflora edulis comes in, it's when the Carica papaya, the papaya fruits comes in. This take like less than a year, maybe 6 months to produce the fruits. So once they get food, it's when they start to realize the positive impact of the project. So that's it for 2025. And maybe with the resources, we might be able to expand and extend the planting benefits to cover or to attend more of these communities in the countrysides.
Well, those are very big plans. We're really happy to support for sure. And yeah, like you said, Tree Nation right now is also improving how we are verifying the projects that we work with. And this also includes the social economic impact evaluation. So for sure, any input, any feedback that we can have between us, it's always welcome. And well, just go to the closure part of this webinar, we collected a series of questions from our community. So we collected a few, one from our forum and others from our social media. So people are really curious about how you work. Most of people don't really know how reforestation works and the impacts that they have. So they're really curious about sustainability. Are you including people? What are the stories from the field? So the first question would be, what are some of the most inspiring community initiatives that you have seen throughout this time you've been working in reforestation and agroforestry?
Okay. The inspiring part of the story, it's about transformation. People are changing a lot. We came to realize that nowadays people understand why they don't need to cut trees to make a living. You know, we we work with a community that used to rely on charcoal and timber or illegal mining in these protected areas. The trend has tremendously changed. The cases have, are reduced to the minimum. I can tell you, we are nowadays having some villagers from the same communities who have devoted their times just to protect the trees we are planting with them. So just see, this never happened, was not existing in last 10 years. But now people know that they need to protect trees like, ficus species, just to protect the river, to protect the creatures. They now know that crocodiles, of course, they used to harm people in the past, but they don't do that unless provoked. And they are good creatures. We don't need to kill them. We just need to let them, survive for the biodiversity and the wilderness to excel. So that to me is an inspiring part. Maybe we don't have the forests yet restored, but with mindsets changed, that is really, really promising that also the trees are going to survive and the forests are also going to be restored. The other part might be the economy of these people. Some of these people used to have a single meal a day. Nowadays, it's common to see people having 3 or 2 meals a day just with the benefits they achieve from the project. You find a person who is having less maize, they sell the passion fruits and get enough money that they use to restock their food at home and maybe purchase other household requirements. So these are inspiring parts and they are also promising. Maybe in 10, 12 years to come, things will definitely be, in the other stage.
That's amazing. It's very good to hear that people are changing the mindset. So another question would be, how did you secure the land ownership and how long do you take to monitor the development of the trees? Like how many years do you track the changes that you're doing?
Thank you. Most of the places we are planting these trees are either private or publicly owned. So for the private land, these are the farming land pieces which are individually owned by these people. So since they already know that the intention is for the condition to be changed, these people are the very first people, the very first guardians of the trees that are planted in their farms. So most of the time, to track the trees around these areas, we normally use our field officers who frequently pay visits to the farmers, talking to them, asking them what is going on. trying to replace some of the dead or lost saplings in the farms. And once they need some assistance, like how to produce their own organic fertilizers, we have this fertilizer we call compost. It can be locally produced, and most of the people do not realize that they can produce the best compost just with the materials which are just available outside their homes. For example, you can use papers, or you can use maybe bones, or you can use eggshells, dry leaves, green leaves, coffee gills, and stuff like these ones. So once all these are gathered, then the farmers are well trained on how, or the best way to make compost. So while paying these visits to inspect the progress of the trees that the farmers were supplied with, it's when we also count the trees which are existing in these farms. So this is the first part of the monitoring. But again, we have the second part, which includes visiting these larger planting sites, for example, the forest patches, or these longer parts of the river, which we are planting to restore the lost, vegetation. So here we normally make some samples. We make some sample plots, and then we get to know the number which is existing. At the end, we can estimate how much is already restored. But lastly, we also use some satellite image evidence just to see what used to happen in the past and what is currently existing. And most of the photos are really promising, because you can easily see how the vegetation is getting, restored in all these areas. So we have all these procedures, normally depending on where are the trees were planted and what do we need to know from the trees that were planted in these areas. It's when we decide which method should we use to track and count the trees existing.
Okay, I think this relates to another question. Is about in the areas that are clear cut, that they don't have any trees or any vegetation, and are difficult for plants to establish. What techniques do you use to support the regeneration of this land?
Thank you so much. It's such a nice question. We have some species we call nursing species. The nursing from the medical field, nurses actually. So we call these trees nursing species. They are native or indigenous tree species, but it proved to perform and do well in these hard environments. And one of these is Macamia lutea. It's also listed as one of the species that the partners can, purchase from the platform. So this is one of the really performing species, and we have been using this in these areas which are hardly accepting other trees to regenerate. So once we have a few of these species planted in these sort of areas, then it's easier for other type of vegetations to start, occupying the left spaces. And finally, it's easier for us, or it makes us confident believing that in a few years to come, the total vegetation might be restored in these areas.
Wow, that's really smart. I didn't know these nursing species were
Yeah, nursing
they
species.
existed.
Yeah, thank you.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, I don't know if you have any final remarks, any conclusion that you would like our audience to know about you, about the project, so we can start closing the webinar.
Thank you so much. Maybe I just say a word of thanks to the Tree Nation. You guys are doing a very, very great job around here. That's why I started by welcoming your physical visits to the sites as well, but also the partners, people who are donating, people who are supporting us in the platform. The country and the world as whole needs a lot of trees. We have lost such a large part of the vegetation that used to exist. For example, in Tanzania, we are still having a serious deforestation problem. More than at least 400,000 hectares are getting lost almost annually. So we need much more effort to make sure that we restore, but also we change these people into a way that they may take care of the forest by understanding that forests are far better important while existing rather than when the trees are all chopped. So just a word of thanks, and you guys are doing a great job. Please, we are looking forward to a future more fruitful cooperation.
Yeah, for sure. Us too. And for part of Tree Nation, we always happy to talk to you, to hear your stories, to see the stories on your project page, all the videos that you have posted. They're really encouraging and inspiring to see the results. It's something that you don't see every day. People making a difference. So, and through trees is as simple as that. And yeah, so we're really happy with our work together. And we hope that in the future we can continue working together and continue helping out people, the youth in Tanzania as well, and also support you in educating the local population and continue that movement of sustainability in Tanzania. Thank you so much for your time and joining this webinar series. And hopefully soon we will publish it. So I'll let you know. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Yeah, have a nice
Okay.
moment, Oriana. Bye.